Just imagine that you're George Washington or Benjamin Franklin, and you're going to start a nation. How do you start? Where do you begin? It must have been a real task.
Well, my name's Caroline, and I work for Congressman Ralph Hall.
Yeah, and tell us where we're at.
We are in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol.
And tell us a little bit about it.
All right, well, that painting at the top is called the Apotheosis of George Washington. It means his descent into heaven. It's painted by a man named Constantino Bernini. That painting is over 4,000 square feet.
At the top of that dome, many people call the statue Liberty or Freedom or America. But at the top of the dome, one of the things that Washington and Jefferson and Franklin did is they tried to introduce deeply intellectual, historical concepts into the design of Washington, D.C. And the lady on top of the dome, at the very center of the dome on top, is not liberty or freedom or an American native woman, although her crown does look like feathers. The lady at the top of the dome is the Roman goddess Minerva, the goddess of strength, wisdom, and protection. And atop of her head is not feathers, but an old Egyptian crown, because the Romans got Minerva from the Greek Shakespeare, because she was so frightening to people, she caused their spears to shake. Athena, the Greeks got her from the Zoroastrians, who got her from the god Isis. Isis from Egypt believed in enlightenment, seeking the light. That's what the pyramids, that's what the obelisk was all about. Our founding fathers went to history and said, let's design a nation based on historical studies. The design, the philosophy, the streets, the buildings, the architecture, even the art was all based on historical consideration by our forefathers.
Well, here we have it. Look at this facility. What do you think, Sonny?
Oh, it's great.
It's amazing, isn't it?
One of the great buildings in Washington is built by the Masons, by the Scottish Rite. This is the House of the Temple. It is a remarkable structure and was once named one of the most extraordinary buildings in the world. The building has attracted enormous interest. It is a beauty.
Building superintendent under building and grounds.
What are you seeing in terms of growth for the order?
Well, we're seeing massive expansion in a lot of our local lodges here in D.C.
Are they old or young?
The craft is being barraged with young men coming to our doors.
You know, we're hearing this all over the nation. Would you say it's true?
Absolutely. From what I hear, it will be a plus for the future of our craft.
Thank you.
Matt Samosky, Director of Development for the Supreme Council.
Sure.
The House of the Temple was designed by John Russell Pope. He is the same architect that designed Jefferson Memorial, the National Archives, and about 12 state capitals. He also did a lot of private residences. This was his first private building that he did, non-government building. And when it was finished, Architectural Digest ranked it one of the most important buildings in the country. And let me tell you about a few of the features on the front.
Now,
you'll notice.
what year was that?
1915 is when it was completed.
1915.
They laid the cornerstone in 1911, and 4 years later they had completed the building.
That was kind of the heyday too. Everything was just rolling.
It was. That was kind of the golden age of Masonic architecture. A lot of the really magnificent buildings were made during that time.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to construct this now. When they built it, they actually laid a railroad track down 16th Street to get the materials here because of the weight of the stone and everything that was used in its construction. And I don't think today you could do it.
Yeah.
It would be a little difficult.
Yeah.
You might have a stone face and it would probably be a steel structure with just a little veneer over it would look nice. The two sphinxes were actually carved here on site. They were kind of roughly carved out in the shape of the sphinx. The one on your right here has the eyes, they're really supposed to be like half closed, and that one represents wisdom. The one on the other side, the eyes are fully open, and that represents strength. And then, of course, the steps coming up here for Masons are very important because there's 3, 5, and 7 as we come up.
I was counting the steps as I came up, yeah.
The address is kind of unique, too. They actually had to get an act of Congress to change the address. Now, we're at 16th Street, and we really were supposed to be, I think, I don't know, 1750. But they got changed to 1733. 33, the important number for Scottish Rite. But then if you take the 17 and add to 16th Street, you get 33 also. So kind of a neat little
that is great.
The two doors, the entrance doors, are solid bronze. They weigh about 2.5 tons each. And then if you'll notice at the top, if you look up, You'll see some scaffolding where we're doing some work on the building now, but there are 33 columns around the building, obviously again representing the 33rd degree of the Scottish Rite. Beautiful. The behind there, you'll notice that little motif that's in the front there. That is, of course, the double-headed eagle of the Scottish Rite, and that is supposed to be the rays of the sun coming out behind it. And around on the bottom, it's kind of hard to see, but you'll see when we go inside the building. That is a design of the House of Temples Library is the oldest public library in Washington, D.C. Wow. Originally it was located Judiciary Square, which our old building was there. Yeah. It opened in the 1800s, and it preceded all of the city's public libraries and other nonprofits that have ones. It is, anybody in the public can come here and use the library. It is open to everyone.
It smells of old books, too.
It does, yes. And this is the room that people come to for doing research. They sit here at the table and bring their laptop.
Oh, and look at the scale of this.
Yes. And I'll show you downstairs. We have international. Now, they're right now going through every book in the library, and something we have to do eventually we never did was we never had an ascension and descension policy. So if you loved reading, you might have called us up. And we wouldn't take, Reader's Digest condensed books, but we did take a lot that we probably shouldn't have done, so they're going through it now because the focus of our library is masonry, history, religion, and philosophy. Oh, so those are our core areas that we want to grow in.
Some of these are so old.
Oh, yes. But
the library was absolutely fascinating. The books were so ancient. Sonny and I sat here for hours reading and studying, and it was terrific, and the curator most helpful. In this library, I learned that every August the 10th, as the setting sun sets directly over Pennsylvania Avenue, 3 stars become visible. A straight line from the Capitol to the White House to the sky. Regulus, Arcturus, and Spica, the stars form a right-angled triangle, framing the constellation Virgo. Virgo was also known to the Romans as Minerva.
You say he was a poet?
yes.
But I mean, were they sentimental or?
They were a real cross-section. I've only seen a few of them, but he did publish several books of poetry. The ones I saw were Masonic, but there were a couple that were about, youth sitting in a field and describing everything he's seen. So there was a variety of poems. It was published. It was not just within the Masonic training, but outside as well.
Little Shakespeare.
But he's kind of forgotten about it as far as the poetry aspect. That's kind of. We're at the rear of the building, that rounded part, and the library wraps all around there. And there are a few real interesting things over here on my right. Is the first Masonic book that was printed in North America by Benjamin Franklin.
He printed it?
And yes, there's about 40 copies of that in the world today that are still in existence.
Wow. How much does it differ from what we would see today?
Not much. If your Grand Lodge has a monitor,
yeah,
I would say probably 85-90% of the wording in there you would recognize without a problem.
No kidding.
This is the Bible that was used at George Washington's funeral. That's on loan to the library now from Federal Lodge. And along with the books, there are displays in this room, mostly Masonic regalia, rings, jewels. A couple of interesting things. I don't know if you're familiar with the Dudley Watch Company. They were, in America, probably one of the premier watch companies in the late 10s or 1900s. And they made a lot of Masonic watches. What was really unique about them was that all the workings on the inside, the springs and all the different things that made the watch work, were made to look like Masonic emblems.
No.
And we have you can see it here. Here's the original one. If you look on the inside of the workings, you can see they're all little Masonic emblems.
Unbelievable. I can't focus that close, but wow.
They're really beautiful watches.
Nobody's better at this than the Masonic people. Huh?
It's beautiful.
Look at these rings.
If you look at the detail work too, it's a shame nowadays it's almost impossible to find the quality of the detail that they used to do in a lot of the old jewels and rings.
Yeah.
We have 2 librarians, one full-time, one part-time, that assist all the visitors and researchers that come here. Interestingly, more than half of the folks that come to the library are not Masons. There are people that we have a rare book they want to research or something, so we get quite a few.
Wow.
This was quite a donation for us a while ago, too. If you're familiar with the Knights Templars, who fought during the Crusades,
sure.
Of course, they eventually got persecuted by the Catholic Church, and they were seized, arrested, and Jacques d'Amolay, their last leader.
On the 13th?
But, the Vatican, about 10 years ago, agreed to let some researchers come in for the first time ever and go through all of the records from the trials of the Templars. And when they did that, they were allowed to, they translated it into Italian and English. And in the book on the right, the white one, if you look at it, on the left side it's the Italian, the right's the English, and this leather bound on left here is the original Latin. Long story short, it's all the records from the trial, so it really gives you a lot of insight in what was said and what charges were made. And one of our members donated that. They only printed 500 editions, and they were about 14,000 a piece. And luckily we had a donor who felt that it was worthwhile for us to have that in the library, and that's one of the nice things about the library here at the House of Temples. We try to keep it updated.
Yeah.
It's not just the past of Masonry, but we also try to keep the present and the future here as well. But it had the Salve Frater on there, and Pope, this is the only building that, private building, that Pope also designed on the inside as well as the building. So it adds special significance to that table. That was a design of his, and
now,
so are the chairs.
Salve Frater, Latin for welcome, brother?
Welcome, brother.
Yeah.
So it greets every Scottish Rite Mason when they come in.
Now, what is this room called?
This is the main atrium, and this is where all the folks who visit the House of Temple of Reading from here. They can go to the library or the museums. Pope also designed the chairs that you see around here, which have the double-headed eagle on them. And these lamps, again, were also custom designed. That's supposed to be Neptune on there. And Neptune, one of Greek mythology, and one of his virtues was wisdom also, justice. And then if you look at the lamps on the ceiling here, those are figures from Greek mythology, and that's Medusa in the middle. Don't look at it all very much, turns stone.
Medusa. Well, now, Pike was some kind of genius, wasn't he?
He was, yes, absolutely.
You know, when I was reading that book, I couldn't believe the breadth, the range of them, right?
No, not all 32. They just put the, for lack of a better word, they have one over here. It's actually a square compass, but they put what they call the mandatory degrees, the ones that you have to receive.
Okay.
Like a 4, 18, all the key ones. Not to say the others aren't important, but the key ones.
Now, have I seen the double-headed eagle in the Roman art?
There is some. They usually use a single, but there are some double-head eagles. Yeah. And it was used in a lot of cultures around the world.
Yeah.
Russia used one,
yeah.
Of course. So the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, quite a few places use a double eagle. Usually a map. Well, I know the folks who speak, but you get to stand while you're here. And this is also the only room that has a faux finish. The walls in here are stone, but that finish on it is actually a painted finish.
Almost looks French, doesn't it?
It does have a piece. And of course, the members of spring council sit around the side chairs, and the officer is the grand commander or a leader, which Scottish Rite sits up in the front there, which is called the East, and he sits right underneath the mount. And then there's 2 lieutenant grand commanders, they sit over here in the west. There's a secretary that does the same job with most organizations. Pike is actually buried behind that. They reinterred him here. When they opened the building, he was buried in a cemetery here in D.C. And when they opened House of Temple, they moved his remains. It's on the wall right behind that bust. And this is our Pillars of Charity over here. This is where we honor those folks who have made $1 million or more contribution to our foundations. They get honored with a pillar and with their name and what the gift was made for.
And you could use 90 of these right now, right?
Absolutely.
In fact, let me ask you,
we only need 85 now.
if someone wanted to contribute to the rebuilding of this temple or the maintenance of it, where would they talk to? What numbers and et cetera?
Sure. If they contact us at the development office, they can call me directly at 202-777-3143, or they can go to the Scottish Rite website, which is www.scottishrite.org, and on the website there's information about our foundation, the campaign, and you can give online if you would like to.
And I've got your head right beside his head.
This is John Coles. He was the Grand Commander shortly after they moved in here.
Okay.
This will be the behind-the-scenes thing. Now this is years ago. Now they still use this if a caterer comes in to serve, but those dumb waiters on the end would have gone down in the basement level.
Look at that.
They would prepare all the food, put the dishes on there, bring it up, and then up here, or the raw food, and then up here they might set up plates, and you go through the line, and they get your meal. So many places have torn out the old.
You know, this reminds me of the Jefferson estate. Have you seen his
Yes,
kitchens
oh,
there?
yeah.
Doesn't it remind you of that sort of?
Yep. It's just beautiful old little cabinetry.
Yes. Look at this. Wow. And this is one of the bronzes that's on that door. And there's the cornerstone, or a replica of it. And this is George Washington laying that cornerstone of the United States Capitol. Pretty cool. You notice he's got on his Masonic apron.
That is correct. The Scottish Rite today, one of the ways that we promote ourselves among Masons, a reason to join, is we consider ourselves the University of Freemasonry. And the real emphasis in the Scottish Rite is on receiving more light, learn more about the history of our world as well as the history of man, and really how to treat one another, how to act. And we do that through all of the degrees in the Scottish Rite, where we use lessons from many religions, many cultures. And if you look at our organization today, the number of books that we produce that are put in print, the quality of the magazines, it really is serving as an educational tool both for members in the Scottish Rite and other folks in the community as well.
But because of the membership and the various degrees, they have to study architecture and philosophy and science and many endeavors these people would never study unless they went to college. And it's almost like a college degree, isn't it? It is a college degree.
Absolutely, and you know, and one of the places we're really doing a successful job nowadays with that is our Scottish Rite Research Society, and once a year they publish a book called Herodom. And if you were to look at that, the variety of articles, the scholarly work that's done, will cover everything from Pythagoras to you know, some lost symbol, and really give you an in-depth. It's almost like taking a semester course at a university in 30 pages.
Yeah.
You're getting that kind of information, that kind of content.
One of the things that surprised me is at the House of the Temple in Washington, D.C., they have a garden for people to come and grow things back to the essential elements. Wow. Now, I want you to call off the names and see if you can recognize these faces. I learned that almost all of our astronauts have been Freemasons. Most of our founding fathers, 14 or 15 of our presidents, Freemasons.
Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine, arrows of praise, purchase of God, overloved spirit washed in those hands.
You know, when you think about the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, there was this great interest in all aspects of education, science and math, astronomy. Pike had a great interest in everything from poetry to world religions, philosophy, ancient history, and he really, what he read and what he wrote about was a very large area of interest. Not what we see today where so many people tend to be focused.
Yeah.
They may have an interest in the history of Britain or the Roman Empire, where Pike looked at the whole world and how it affected mankind throughout it.
Confederate general, but he was interred in the National Cemetery, is that correct?
That is correct, and he's also the only Confederate general that has a monument in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Over Judiciary Square.
Yeah. Now, he had a scholarship to Harvard that he gave back to them, isn't that right?
That is correct, and he did well. Now, here's something you don't see much anymore. That is his death mask. In the Victorian period, when he died, it was very popular at that time to take a photo of the deceased member from him or do a death mask, so you'd have an image of them when they died. That is his actual death mask. Lawyer, he actually argued in front of the Supreme Court. He worked with Indian affairs. Just a little bit. He was a businessman for a while. He did a little bit of everything. He was real unique. Pieces of cloth, and they were burned on because, of course, that's tradition in America. If the flag gets tearing between you do it. But he felt so bad for the prisoners who put this together, that how much it had meant to them during the war that he couldn't bring himself to doing it. So he folded it up, put it in his pocket, and kept it hidden for years. And he much later donated it here to our museum. And if you look at it closely, you can just see it's just all little shreds of clothing, fabric that were put together to make the flag.
Hand stitched while they're in a prison in Germany, I suppose?
Actually in the Pacific.
Pacific, yeah. My father was a Marine in Iwo Jima.
Ah, okay.
And
now, a lot of the astronauts were Masons, and including some today. We've had at least one or two of the shuttle pilots who were as well. But these were all flags that were carried either to the moon or into space. That's Bob Dole's cap over there from World War II. The chair you see over here, the ejection seat and the pilot's uniform, our current Grand Executive Director is Admiral Sizemore.
yes,
Admiral Sizemore is a carrier pilot. I know he did over 1,000 carrier landings, probably many more than that. I don't know the exact number. His son, who also is an admiral now, William G. Sizemore Jr., that's his photo. He is an active duty Navy admiral. He flew the last F-14 in combat over Iraq. And that's a photo of the planes he was in, and this is the seat that actually came out of that plane and the uniform he wore the last time that plane was used in combat.
so you're saying it's not just for has-beens.
No. Harry Truman's collar when he got his 33rd. Wayne Murphy's dog tags. In the round room are prominent Masons who are either politicians or military officers, leaders in our country.
Henry Clay, Thomas Cole, Zebulon Pike, yeah. Got two Pikes here, huh?
Absolutely.
Oliver Ellsworth. Is that Jefferson? That's Jefferson, isn't it?
That's Washington. Looks
Is that
like
Washington?
Jefferson. That was a painting that was done in Washington. A few that was actually done from life. That was done about a couple years before he died.
He's had dental problems.
If you look
right?
at it, he didn't look very happy. That's because everybody thinks that these wooden teeth actually weren't wood. They were made out of a porcelain, but they used all kinds of stuff in them. Horsehair and all hold together.
Yeah.
They were very uncomfortable. And that was done right before he died. And they consider that probably the most...
Now, was Robert Burns, all these are Burns books.
He was a Mason.
He was a Mason.
Yes.
And so when I see these guys that they put on the kilts and they do
Yes.
presentations,
Yes.
they're probably Masons then, wouldn't you guess?
Often, yes. There are a lot of lodges around the world that have, were maybe started by Scots, or they have a population of Scots within them that will actually hold a Burns night on an annual basis to commemorate him.
Yeah.
Very, very prominent Mason. This so many of the ancient cultures.
This symbol is, in some places, considered a symbol of eternity. You see it in a lot of brickwork, a lot of textiles.
Very, very common. Even India. You
Even
find it in
India.
ancient India.
Yeah.
Very, very common. The decorative element around. This is a real masonry building. That the stones and everything do support it, including these huge columns that you see up here. And this is the temple room at the end. My favorite room. Look at it.
9-pointed star. Wonderful.
Beautiful room. More of the lamps like you saw from downstairs.
Amazing. Look at that skylight.
Look at the detail. Remember I mentioned to you earlier, if you look real quick at the light, and if you look at the detail, you can see like the ringlets of his beard. And you would, I just can't imagine nowadays you would see that kind of craftsmanship.
And this is Neptune.
Yes. Just incredible. And the decorative work around the entrance. I mean, just-
Sweetie,
And of course, on the top, on the ceiling, that's
this
Ahura
9-pointed star, again, goes all the way back to Isis. It goes through almost every major religious tradition.
Mazda.
It's one way or the other.
And up there, that's the Ahura Mazda, the angel with two wings.
Is that the Ahura Mazda?
Or close to that. I mean,
It is the Ahura Mazda with the triangle in the middle, you're right. You know what, the Ahura Mazda? That's the great symbol of Zoroastrian religion.
Up
Did you know
at the
that?
top, it looks like very similar to that. Yes.
No, it's the primary symbol of Zoroastrianism. And what a beautiful demonstration of the light.
Yes. Now this is, let me tell you a little bit about this room. All the wood that you see is Russian walnut. It actually came over here in about 1914. The Tsar, Nicholas, was a Mason. And good thing we got the wood out then. I don't know if you would have got out after the Revolution. It's a very unusual kind. You can get Russian walnut, but I know that for us, when we've had to do a repair, it's about $200 for one, like, 4-foot long board of this wood mats. It's a certain species of Russian walnut. It's not very common over there. But these chairs, the ones you see with the, for lack of a better word, the desks and the chairs, those are for the spring council members. They get seated there, and the rest of the officers were in the west or the east again. And the benches would be for the general membership to sit in. Again, if there's special guests, they'll let them sit up front on the right and left. One of the more unique ceremonies that we had recently was he just passed away about a month ago, but the last surviving World War I veteran, who was about 108 when he came by here, the Secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs came over here with us, and we both honored him for his service to our country. He was still in pretty good health at 100 plus years. The floor was hand cut and inlaid by Italian artisans. They came over here and did that. The one piece, I take a little pride in, I'm a Virginian. The altar was originally supposed to come from Italy, the stone, and by the time they got to the altar, World War I had started. They couldn't get it. It was in northern Italy, and they were fighting the Austrians up there. Well, they found the same marble down in Virginia that matched the color they wanted. So this is a little piece of Virginia right in the middle of the house of the temple.
Wonderful.
And of course, it has quite a few books of faith on the altar, because our membership, as long as it's wait for spring being, they can join in. I'm trying to remember now. Arthur Boyce is a better man than me. Give me a minute, it'll come to me. Tim and I were talking about that, and there was actually a mistake we found out with it. They painted a letter, let me see if I can find it. Somebody improperly put it, which has caused argument about what the meaning is. Let's find out whether that was intentional or not. Something along the lines of the light of God. I think that's the ineffable symbol of God. One of us what he calls that, the light of God.
Special sense.
It is really an incredible experience. It's very inspiring. It's such a large and beautiful room that you almost feel you're with the Creator. It's a special feeling, and it really speaks to the importance of Freemasonry and Scottish Rite in our country. And when you're here, you do feel that being a Scottish Rite Mason is important.
Yeah.
Something unique. It's a beautiful room.
It's a special thing to be here. Thank you.
It is. It's wonderful. Well, at nighttime, sometimes you can maybe see, if it's a real good night, you might see a little bit of stars up in the sky if the lights aren't real light. It's just a beautiful.
And so we say, from the darkness of ignorance through the shadows of our earth life, winds the beautiful path of initiation into the divine light of the holy altar.